Assalamualaikum, my name is NURUL EZZETI binti Muhammad EFFENDI. My matric number is HFT20203. I will introduce my group member. First, Nur Farahanum binti Abdul Rahim, Siti Nur FATIHAH binti SHUKUR, Nur AFIQAH NAJWA binti NAIM, and the last one, Putri FATHIN NURASYIRAH binti AFENDY. For table of content, we have introduction, company background, ratio analysis, trend analysis, comparative analysis, overall analysis, and conclusion. For introduction, financial ratio are analysis tool to interpret and evaluate a firm performance based on financial statement. Ratio are used to highlight a firm weakness and strength. Among the user of financial ratio are manager, investor, or interested party. Among the company that have been selected as a study from Fresh and FNN. Financial ratio are important for company because they need to know their ratio, asset management, profitability, and liquidity to make accurate forecasts and smarter decisions. Financial ratio are important for every business. Among the common financial ratio that every business needs to look at our liquidity ratio, leverage ratio, efficiency ratio, profitability ratio, and market value ratio.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Nur Farahanum binti Abdul Rahim, my number matric H218299. First, company background of FNN. Present and Live Limited FNN is a Singapore-based food and beverage producer with a history of 1883. The company's success can be attributed to its commitment to quality, innovation, and adaptability. Next, FNN research and development personnel continuously create new products, ensuring they stay ahead of the competition. Their commitment to quality and reliability has earned them a loyal customer base. FNN abilities to adapt to market demand has allowed them to extend their product range and remain relevant in a competitive market.
Farm Fresh is a business committed to employ sustainability agriculture method to produce organic fruits and vegetables. Over the last 10 years, the company has been able to create a loyal client base and achieve a consistent growth in revenue and profitability by focusing on local distribution and environmental sustainability. Farm Fresh is well positioned to maintain its success in the years ahead as consumers choose sustainability and local source goods.
I will present the trend analysis for FNN. First, liquidity ratio. There are three types of ratio. Firstly, current ratio. FNN current ratio has increased by 0.8 from 1.2 in 2021 to 2 in 2022. This shows that FNN is sufficient to pay short-term obligations. Second, quick ratio. FNN quick ratio has increased by 0.4, which is from 0.9 in 2021 to 1.3 in 2022. This shows that FNN can pay off its short-term current liabilities. Third is net working capital. FNN has increased by RM313,838, where in 2021 the net working capital in RM211,545, while in 2022 is RM545,383. This reflects that FNN has sufficient current of assets to cover the current liabilities. Next, activity ratio. First of all, total asset turnover. The total asset turnover remains constant. However, the sale and total asset is higher during 2022 than 2021. This shows that FNN is effective in its use of assets to generate sales. Secondly, account receivable turnover. The account receivable of FNN shows a decrease in about 1.2, where it was higher in 2021, which is 6.2, meanwhile in 2022 is 5. This reflects that FNN is becoming less efficient in handling of its recovering its account receivable. Thirdly, the average collection period took longer in 2022, which is 73 days, while only 58 days in 2021, with differences of 15 days. FNN is showing the inefficiency in collecting its debt, which can be a problem to satisfying short-term obligations. Fourthly, inventory turnover. FNN inventory decreased by 1 times, where in 2022 it turns 5 times, while in 2021 managed to turn 6 times. This shows that FNN is slightly slowly managing its inventory. Lastly, fixed asset turnover. The fixed asset turnover of FNN was the same between 2022 and 2021, which is 2.5 times. This shows that FNN maintained the efficiency in generating sales with the usage of fixed asset. Thirdly, leverage or debt ratio. First, debt ratio. The debt ratio of FNN has been seen in 2022 and 2021, which is 30%. The debt is considerable by the amount of assets. Secondly, debt to equity ratio. The debt to equity ratio of FNN shows a maintained percent for 2 years, which is 16%. It shows that FNN are engaging well of their finance with the shareholders. Lastly, time interest earn ratio. The higher ratio was in 2022 at 8.6 than 2021 at with differences 0.6. It shows that FNN can meet loan requirement and low risk of default, as is profitability ratio. First, ROE. ROE shows a 1% decrease where in 2021 was 6% while in 2022 was 5%. This shows that FNN gets lower returns from their shareholder. Second, ROA. ROA shows a decrease about 1% where in 2021 it's 4% while 2022 was 3%. FNN show a fall in the contribution margin in their efficiency based on their service. Thirdly, gross profit of FNN in 2021 was greater than 2022, which 31% than 29%. The slightly decrease of 2% in a year showing that FNN couldn't make a profitable profit margin on their sales. Fourthly, operating profit margin. In 2021, FNN recorded the highest operating profit margin, which is 23%, while lower in 2022 at 22%. The decreasing amount of 5% shows that lower productivity in FNN promotion. Lastly, net profit margin. In 2021 was greater than 2022 with 10% than 9% respectively. There 1% slightly decrease at the net profit margin from 2021 to 2022. Lower ratio at 9% in 2022 indicates lower income to shareholder. Thank you.
Liquidity ratio for FarmFresh in 2021 and 2022. Current ratio. FarmFresh current ratio has increased from 0.8 to 3.6. This shows that FarmFresh is sufficient to pay short-term obligation. Next is quick ratio. FarmFresh quick ratio has increased from 0.38 to 2.8. This shows that FarmFresh can pay off its short-term current liabilities. Lastly, net working capital. FarmFresh has negative net working capital in 2021 indicates that the company may have difficulty with its short-term obligation. However, in 2022, result from a positive, which is a good sign for the company finance. Activity ratio for FarmFresh in 2021 and 2022. The total asset turnover. Total asset turnover decreased, but the sale and total asset is higher in 2022 than in 2021. This shows that FarmFresh is effective in the use of asset to generate sales. Next is account receivable turnover. The account receivable of FarmFresh show a decrease about 0.5, which was lower than 2021. This reflects that FarmFresh is becoming less efficient in the handling of recovering its account receivable. Other than that, average collection period. It took longer in 2022, which is 73 days, while in 2021 only took 66 days. FarmFresh showing that it is inefficient in collecting debt, which can be a problem in satisfying short-term obligation. Inventory turnover. FarmFresh inventory turnover decreased, where in 2021 4.7 times and in 2022 4.2 times. This shows that FarmFresh has not effectively managed its inventory. Other than that is fixed asset turnover. The fixed asset turnover of FarmFresh was lower in 2022, which is 1.5 times, while in the previous year was 1.6 times. This shows that FarmFresh has become less efficient in generating with the use of fixed asset. Leverage or debt ratio for FarmFresh in 2021 and 2022. Debt ratio. The debt ratio of FarmFresh decreased in 2031 is 60%, while in 2022 is 40%. This is a positive trend for FarmFresh because it's managing its finance well and reducing its financial risk. Then debt to equity ratio. The debt to equity ratio was decreased from 250% in 2021 to 170% in 2022. This showed that FarmFresh trends towards reducing its debt to equity ratio is a positive sign for the company financial. Next is time interest earn ratio. The time interest earn ratio increased from 1 to 1.5 in 2021 to 3 to 2.7 in 2022. This shows that FarmFresh has improved its financial position and generate more income to cover its expenses. Lastly, profitability ratio for FarmFresh in 2021 and 2022. Return on equity ROE was decreased in 80% in 2021 and 30% in 2022. This shows that FarmFresh is less efficient in generating profit and increased equity. Next is return on asset ROA. The ROA show an increase about 1%, which is in 2021 7% and 2022 8%. This indicates that FarmFresh experienced a higher return on its investment. Lastly, gross profit margin. The gross profit margin decreased from 29% to 27%. FarmFresh show a falling the contributing margin in their efficiency based on their service.
Ratio for FNN is 1.2 while Farm Fresh is 2. Farm Fresh is better in pay short-term debt. Quick ratio for FNN is 0.9 higher than Farm Fresh, which is 0.38. Capital, Farm Fresh is higher than FNN, which is RM 55898399 and RM 21545. Next is activity ratios. Total assets turnover FNN is lower than Farm Fresh. Farm Fresh total assets more effective in generating sales than FNN. For account receivable, FNN is 6.2 higher than 5.5 of Farm Fresh. Farm Fresh is becoming less efficient than FNN in handling account receivable. Average collection period took longer for Farm Fresh, which is 66 days, while FNN just took 58 days. Farm Fresh is inefficient in collecting debt, which can problem in satisfying short-term obligation. FNN inventory turnover is 6 times higher than 4.7 times for Farm Fresh. This shows that Farm Fresh is not effectively managing its inventory. Lastly, fixed assets turnover of FNN is 2.5 times higher than Farm Fresh, which is 1.6 times. Farm Fresh become less efficient in generating sales with the use of fixed assets. The ratio of Farm Fresh is 16% higher than FNN. Farm Fresh managing its finance well than FNN and reducing its financial risk. Debt to equity ratio for Farm Fresh is 250% higher than FNN, just 60%. Farm Fresh is a positive sign in the debt to equity ratio for the company's financial health. Lastly, time interest earned ratio has a big difference, which is FNN is 8 and Farm Fresh is 1.1.5. Farm Fresh has a better financial position and generates more income to cover expense than FNN. Last is profitability ratios. Return on equity ROE for FNN lower than Farm Fresh, which is FNN is 6% and Farm Fresh is 80%. FNN less efficient than Farm Fresh at generating profits and high in equity. ROA shows Farm Fresh 7% is higher than FNN 4%. Farm Fresh experiences a higher return in investment than FNN. Gross profit margin for FNN is higher than Farm Fresh. FNN is a better contributing margin in their efficiency based on their services. Farm Fresh 84% is higher in operating profit margin than FNN 22%. Productivity of the organization, Farm Fresh is better than FNN. Net profit margin, FNN is higher than Farm Fresh. FNN has more revenue than Farm Fresh.
Assalamualaikum, my name is AFIQAH NAJWA binti NAIM. My metric number is HFT20203. Today, I would like to present about the comparative analysis of FNN and Farm Fresh milk industry in 2022. First, in liquid ratio has a current ratio, second has a quick ratio, and also net working capital. First, in the current ratio, for FNN is lower than Farm Fresh. Second is quick ratio. A quick ratio of FNN is 1.3, which is lower than Farm Fresh. That is a 2.8 for Farm Fresh. Third is a net working capital. In the net working capital, Farm Fresh is higher than FNN. The next is activity ratio. In the activity ratio has a total asset turnover. The total asset turnover is for FNN is lower than Farm Fresh. This shows that Farm Fresh total asset are more effective in generating sales than FNN. The next is account receivable turnover. The account receivable of FNN and Farm Fresh is 5. Average collection period. Farm Fresh and FNN showing that 73 days. For inventory turnover, FNN inventory turnover is 5 times higher than 4.2 times for Farm Fresh. This shows that Farm Fresh is not effectively managing its inventory. The last is fixed asset turnover. The fixed asset turnover of FNN is 2.5 times higher than Farm Fresh, which is 1.5 times. The next is leverage or debt ratio. The debt ratio of Farm Fresh is 40% higher than FNN. There is 30% debt to equity ratio. The debt equity ratio for Farm Fresh is 170% higher than FNN, just 60%. The last is time interest earned ratio. The time interest earned ratio has a big difference, which is FNN is 8.6 and Farm Fresh is 3 to 2.7. The last is profitability ratio. Return on equity for FNN is lower than Farm Fresh, which is FNN is 5% and Farm Fresh is 30%. Return on asset, if you can see, the ROA show Farm Fresh 8% is higher than FNN. There is 4%. Profit margin for Farm Fresh, 27% is higher in operating profit margin than FNN. There is 22%. They show the productivity of the organization Farm Fresh is better than FNN. The next is operating profit margin. Farm Fresh, this is 85% is higher in operating profit margin than FNN. There is 9%. The last is net profit margin. Net profit margin reflects how much revenue of sales could be collected by the company. Farm Fresh is higher than FNN. This indicates Farm Fresh has more revenue than FNN.
For overall analysis, based on the trend analysis, FNN Holding has lower amount of debit ratio that measure the proportion of total asset finance by the frame creditor. Farm Fresh and FNN Holding have healthy liquidity ratio and likely to be approved for credit. The higher the debit ratio, greater the amount of other people money being used to generate profit. Comparative analysis in liquidity ratio show the activity ratio Farm Fresh has been high in several activities and FNN Holding has access only in one activity compared to Farm Fresh. Among the activity ratio that Farm Fresh access
FNN Holding are asset turnover, SC receivable turnover, inventory turnover, and fixed assets turnover. The debit leverage ratio show that Farm Fresh has a higher debit ratio and debit to equity ratio, while FNN Holding has a higher ratio of time interest earned. Among the profitability ratio are return on equity, return on asset, gross profit margin, operating profit margin, and profit margin. One of recommendation to improve the financial performance for Farm Fresh and FNN Holding can provide a good condition of farm to the cow, as they will give the herd a good quality of grass and nutritional food.
In the conclusion, we assess the liquidity ratio, we examine the leverage ratio. Third, we examine how effectively managers use the resources at their disposal to generate sales and how much they contribute to the firm aims and the maximization of shareholder wealth. And last, we examine how the management of liquidity, activity, and leverage has an overall positive impact on the firm operating result. Given that both Farm Fresh and FNN a large operating profit margin that competing business, we can conclude that they are more productive.